the sophistication and the problems that are attendant with revelation, a tradition emerged in the Islamic ethos. And the tradition emerged in order to protect revelation from misunderstanding. The early companions, Allah blessed those people with a level of knowledge and understanding that's unparalleled in our tradition. The first community. If you study the history, they were amazing, brilliant people. But if you look at the Sahaba, there are only a handful of Sahaba that gave fatwa. They're called the Mukthirun. There's only a handful of Sahaba that gave fatwa. People like Umar ibn al-Khattab, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ibn Mas'ud, radiyallahu anhu. Abu Huraira is not from the Mukthirin of fatwa. Even though he had many hadith narrations, he didn't give a lot of fatwa. In fact, he gave a moderate amount, according to one riwayah. But one of the things about the early community is that they were loath to give fatwa. So if you went to ask one of the Sahaba a question, they used to say, go ask so-and-so. He knows better than me. And then they would go to him. Imam Nawawi writes this in his book on fatwa. And then they would say, go to so-and-so, go to so-and-so. And it would go until it came back to the original person. Now you have people that they jump to answer. And very quick to give an opinion. In Imam Malik's tradition, they call the fatwa nazila, which means musibah. And Imam Malik, if he was asked a question in fiqh, he used to say, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, which is what you say when you have a tribulation. Because basically, a fatwa is a response of a scholar who's trained, and in that response, he is saying, it is my belief that this is what God wants you to do in this situation. That's essentially what a fatwa is. You're saying, it's my belief that this is what God would want you to do in this situation. Now you get another person who can give a different fatwa. He'll say, it's my belief, this is what God wants you to say. And in many, many situations, you can have different views. Because one, God is vast, and two, understandings differ. So the Prophet ﷺ actually taught us that there can be two correct opinions. In Sahih al-Bukhari, the famous one that the Usuli scholars use is the one of praying Asr. The Prophet ﷺ told them not to pray Asr until they got to Bani Qurayza. And the group went, when Asr time came, half of them said it's time to pray, and the other half said, no, the Prophet said, don't pray until we get there. They said, no, he didn't mean that. He meant get there before Asr. And the other group said, no, he meant that we should pray when we get there. And we shouldn't pray Asr until we get there. So they split. So one group prayed Asr before they got there, and the second group waited. They delayed their prayer. When they got there, they told the Prophet what happened. He didn't say, you're correct and you're wrong. He just left it at that. They were both correct. They both made an ijtihad. It was an ijtihadi situation, and that was it. Now you have people that believe there's only one way in Islam, and it just so happens to be their way. But we have this problem, that there's only one way in Islam, and it's my understanding. The reason that this happens, وَمَا اخْتَرَفُوا إِلَّا مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُم, that they didn't start differing until knowledge came to them and they became arrogant with their knowledge. Fakhruddin al-Razi says about that, بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُم, he says, عَلَى بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ فَقَالَ الْحَقُّ مَعِيَ وَأَنْتَ لَسْتَ عَلَى شَيْءٍ. He said that it's one group saying, oh, I'm right and you're wrong. You don't have anything. So knowledge can be a source of conflict. And this is why Imam al-Ghazali in the first book, Kitab al-Ilm of the Ihya, he lays the foundations for a correct understanding of knowledge. What is knowledge? What is it? A lot of people don't know what knowledge is. They don't understand the nature of knowledge, that there are knowledges that are precise, and then there are imprecise knowledges. There are knowledges that have a lot of ambiguities in them. One of the, Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher, he said that it's the mark of an educated mind to demand precision only to the degree with which that knowledge allows it. So in mathematics, you can get a very precise answer, but in other sciences, that answer might not be precise. It's just ambiguous by the very nature of the subject. And one of the greatest problems with language, and the reason why the modern world loves mathematics so much and is loath to really explore language in the ways that it did in the past, one of the reasons for that is the ambiguities of language. The modern world doesn't like ambiguities. And so people have lost the sciences that enable them to communicate with the least amount of ambiguity, because you have to exhaust language studies. And that's why the Muslims did this. And one of the sciences that this was predicated on was the science of what they called mantiq, and its sister science, which is called adab al-bahth wa al-munazara. In the West, these are called logic and dialectic. Logic and dialectic. And from these sciences, and there are ancillary sciences that go with this, like ilm al-wada' is one of them, balagha is another, because balagha is important. These became the foundation of Islamic studies in the Muslim world. Everywhere you went, they became the foundation. And all of our scholars write from this perspective. You cannot understand any of the major works of Islamic scholarship without understanding these foundational sciences that they were working with. And so